just looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant dribbling, has to put it up for the buzzer. Banks it in! He banks in the third!
The timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot!
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Scotty Talks NBA. As you should know by now, if you tune into the show, I'm your host, Scotty. You can find me at Scotty Drown on all social media networks. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, it is DSM Media. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on DSM Media's YouTube channel. We are always going live, talking about the latest in the sports spectrum, across the spectrum, right? We got you covered for all sports and all Philly sports, to be very specific here. So be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn the notifications on so you're notified every single time that we go live. As you know, in Scotty Talks NBA, we're here every Wednesday. I try to get on here anytime between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. and get this content in. We had a busy week in the NBA world and a lot of different teams moving around, jockeying for position. We're going to get into all of that. I have my top 10 power rankings for you guys today. We got the updated version. And, of course, I got two teams that I want to deep dive in. Just like we do every week, we pick a couple different teams, kind of take a look and see how each of those teams are doing. So we're going to take a deep dive look at the Brooklyn Nets, who are starting to click, and we're going to take a look at the New Orleans Pelicans once again. I know we've already done a deep dive on them, but as you know, they are one of my more favorite teams in the league. So we're going to take another dive in there as they gained the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. So with that being said, after we get done talking about the Pelicans, we're going to get into the Wednesday night picks. And then, of course, we'll go with the best bets. Make sure I get you guys covered there. But before we do that, as always, we do have some house cleaning to take care of. As you know, DSM Media is brought to you by Gents Barber Lounge. Check out one of the 2 great locations in Fishtown and Old City and book your appointment today. Gents owns the craft, and it shows rated the number 1 barbershop on Yelp in the Philadelphia area. Multiple award-winning barbers and being able to handle any style of cut, adult or kid. So be sure to check out gentsbarberlounge.com. Take a look at some of their work here. Awesome. Shout out to Gents Barber Lounge. Be sure to book your appointment today at gentsbarberlounge.com. And, of course, I want to shout out our sponsors over at luxodin.com. Be sure to check out luxodin.com, especially during the holiday season. They got very nice luxury jewelry and for a nice price if you got to go on the cheaper side this holiday season. Be sure to use code DSM for 25% off and free shipping at luxodin.com. With that being said, let's get into it tonight, guys. So we got to obviously start with Tuesday night's action. So we had a couple different games. We had some actually very big matchups last night, right? You had the Warriors taking on the Bucks, the Suns and the Rockets. Shouldn't have been much of a matchup, but nonetheless, Devin Booker didn't play. Celtics at Lakers to finish off the night. Yeah, the Pelicans at the Jazz, and of course, the Kings at my Sixers. So we'll start right there. The Kings at the Sixers game. You had a 123-103 win for the Philadelphia 76ers. The Philadelphia 76ers are now 15-12 on the season. That makes 3 wins in a row, counting that Sacramento win at home. They're in the middle of a 7-game homestand, so obviously as a Sixers fan, I'm hoping they can continue to take advantage of that homestand as there's still 4 to go. They do have the Warriors on Friday. It's going to be their next matchup for the Sixers. The Sacramento Kings, they are now 14-12. They've lost 2 in a row. And they're actually on the road again tonight on a back-to-back, which we'll talk about later. But nonetheless, in this game, you had James Harden, who had 21 points, 7 rebounds, 15 assists. Second straight game going up over the 10 assist mark, and even up over 15 assists. He had 16 assists in the previous game for the Sixers. Joel Embiid continues his hot shooting, 31 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. Didn't have to play too much in that fourth quarter. You always love to see that. And he now qualifies as the leading scorer in the NBA, which I got to check out before we hopped on here. But nonetheless, Embiid is continuing his dominance. And then you have on the other side, the Sacramento Kings, Domantas Sabonis. He had a decent night. He was in a little bit of foul trouble early. He was getting frustrated. It was a very frustrating night overall for Sacramento from the looks of it. But Sabonis, 22 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists for Sacramento Kings. So you look at this matchup, the Kings, the Sixers. It was a really good matchup coming into it. You really like to see the Sixers come out with that W. And what's up, Phil? Thank you for tuning in, buddy. I appreciate you, brother. Yes, comment to get involved in the show. Let me know how you guys are feeling. If you had any thoughts on last night's action, anything we're going to get into in the show, power rankings, whatever the case may be. But thank you for tuning in. Not much though, man. Just chilling. Nice, relaxing Wednesday. France got the W in the World Cup semifinals, so I'm happy to see them move on. I know a lot of people were rooting for Morocco. I'm a French connoisseur. It comes with my past, with my heritage, so I'm always going to be siding with France in that case, and I'm happy to see them go to the final. We get a Messi versus Mbappe World Cup final. Who? What could you ask for that's better, right? But nonetheless. Great win for the Sixers at home against the Kings team that while they didn't come into the season expected to do much, they are keeping themselves afloat in that tough Western Conference. So they've looked like a decent team so far. Nonetheless, a good win for the Philadelphia 76ers. 3 in a row, 3 games above 500. Hopefully keep that energy flowing. The next one, this was the one on national television. You had the Warriors at the Bucks. This came out to be a 128-111 win for the Milwaukee Bucks at home. You now have the Golden State Warriors, who are 14-14. And the big thing here, they have the best home record in the NBA. That's what's crazy here. They continue to struggle on the road. It's their Achilles heel right now. It's what's crippling them. 2-12 on the road this season for the Golden State Warriors. You're not going to be able to get into the spot that they want to be in the Western Conference with that type of record on the road. They got to figure it out. Seems like the defensive struggles continue every time they hit on the road. Milwaukee, in the other hand, you have them at 20-7 on the season, second best record in the NBA behind the Boston Celtics. You had Giannis in this game with 30 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. It wasn't his greatest shooting night at all, but this dude is relentless, man. He still ends up with 30, 12, and 5 in a night where he didn't shoot the ball very well, right? You had Bobby Portis in this game with 25 points, 11 rebounds. Giannis, and Brook Lopez, that trio, that dynamic big man trio that you have there in Milwaukee is quite interesting, and the amount of points that they're able to rack up. You have Brook Lopez, who is arguably a defensive player of the year candidate with the way he blocks shots and protects the paint. But then on the other side, he spaces the floor perfectly for Giannis to dominate inside. It's just a beautiful pairing within that trio. And then you have Steph Curry. It was a little bit of a quiet night for him. 20 points, 6 rebounds, 6 for 16 from the field, 1 assist. So not a big night that we're used to from Steph Curry. You had the Warriors take this loss on the road on the front end of a back-to-back. They also play tonight, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But nonetheless, Warriors continue to struggle on the road. 2-12 on the road for the Warriors. That's worse in the NBA. And we'll see what they got, because they got another one on the road tonight. Next game we're going to look at, Suns at Rockets. This actually makes 5 straight losses for the Phoenix Suns. They started at number 3 in my power rankings. They've moved quite a good bit down now. And they've moved quite a good bit down the Western Conference rankings as well, if we're being honest. But nonetheless, after this game, you had a 111-97 win for the Houston Rockets. They got 9 wins on the season. Houston Rockets are 9-18 now. They've won their last 3 of 4. So the Houston Rockets maybe picking up some good energy there, getting on the right path. On the other hand, you have the Phoenix Suns, who are 16-12, obviously started at the top of that Western Conference, but they've lost 5 straight. So they are right in the middle of the pack now. In this game, you had Mikal Bridges, 18 points, terrible shooting night, 4 for 24 from the field, 2 for 10 from the three-point line. But Jalen Green, on the other hand, 26 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. Kevin Porter Jr. adds in with 18 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. So another great night from that young duo in the backcourt for the Houston Rockets. And once again, they have some bright young talent brewing down there in Houston. You like the way that's starting to form. And they're picking up some steam, man. Won 3 of their last 4. You got to give them a little bit of credit there. The next game I wanted to look at, we have the Pelicans at the Jazz. So this one looked like a little bit of New Orleans losing some steam from those matchups with the Phoenix Suns. This game ends up being a win for the Utah Jazz, 121-100. The New Orleans Pelicans right now are 18-9. Utah Jazz are 16-14. The New Orleans Pelicans, nonetheless, even with this loss, are still at the top of the Western Conference. And before this game, they'd actually won 5 straight to lead the NBA with the longest win streak at the time. After this game, you look at it, Zion, 26 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, kind of did his usual, right? A little bit cooler than the 35 back-to-back games against the Phoenix Suns, but nonetheless, 26, 9, and 5. You can't complain about Zion. Malik Beasley, 21 points, 4 assists, 5 for 12 from the three-point line, obviously hot from the three-point line for the Jazz. And then Lauri Markkanen, another step forward for him in his most improved player candidacy, right, as he moves through the season. 19 points, 11 rebounds, 8 for 16 from the field. So big win for the Jazz to continue to stay afloat in the Western Conference. A little bit of a lackadaisical performance from the Pelicans coming off those big wins against Phoenix, obviously. The next game and the last game that we're going to talk about from last night, it was probably one of the more entertaining, if not the most entertaining game of the night. And I actually got to tune into this one live myself. I had a couple plays in that actually didn't go too bad. I think I had Jason Tatum over 8.5 rebounds. I had Jaylen Brown over 8.5 rebounds, which he ended up with 15, which they were both hitting the boards hard last night. But in this game, you had a 122-118 win for the Boston Celtics in overtime. It took overtime to beat the Lakers last night for the Celtics. On the season, the Celtics are 22-7. That's the best record in the NBA, as you know. The Lakers are 11-16. They're 12th in the Western Conference currently. In this game, the stars were out. The stars were going at it in LA last night. You had Jason Tatum, 44 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Jaylen Brown, 25 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists, filling the stat sheet. These wings, this duo of wings, there's a reason they have the best record in the NBA, right? There's a reason they have the best record in the NBA. And these wings are a lot of that reason. Obviously, you have Marcus Smart, you have Malcolm Brogdon, you have some other guys mixed in there. You're still waiting on Robert Williams to come back. Al Horford was out last night. But nonetheless, these guys are the catalysts. Jason Tatum being 1A, Jaylen Brown being 1B. These guys do it all. Anthony Davis in this game, 37 points, 12 rebounds. He was 13 for 24 from the field. Slowed down heavily towards the end. Ultimately, that's what you could attribute the loss to. He just couldn't give it his all anymore in those later stages of the game, overtime. But nonetheless, 37 and 12. Can you complain about his performance? LeBron in this game, he was pretty good as well. Didn't shoot well from the three-point line, but everything else was rolling. He had 33 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists. So 1 rebound, 1 assist shy of a triple-double. And he was 14 for 25 from the field. The Lakers are playing better, though, man. That's the best team in the NBA that they're taking to overtime last night. Obviously, it's at home. It's in L.A. You had the Celtics that were coming off a tough stretch, right, on the road. But nonetheless, Celtics showed their resilience as the best team in the NBA, why they are the best team in the NBA. They come out with that win. Jason Tatum gives a hell of a performance down the stretch and further verifies his MVP candidacy, the talk around him and the hype that goes with Jason Tatum and that Boston Celtics team. It is more than deserved after a 44-point performance last night in LA. And just I just wanted to point it out. There was a shot to end regulation. He had to hit over LeBron to tie the game to send it into overtime, and just filthy, unstoppable. Literally, you cannot stop that. Jason Tatum is nasty, leads the way for the MVP right now after that performance. But nonetheless, good performance for the Celtics. Not a bad performance for the Lakers either. Obviously, you don't want to lose, but a 4-point loss to the Boston Celtics in overtime is not the worst outcome that you could have had in that game. Nonetheless, great action last night. You had the Sixers, Bucks, Rockets, Jazz, and the Celtics coming away with wins last night. Let's go ahead and get to the power rankings. All right. So we had the updated top 10 power rankings this week. I'm going to try to go through these a little bit faster. I notice these tend to take the longest of the show, and usually we run over whenever we take a really long time with these. So I'm going to try to get through these a little bit faster as far as the power rankings. But of course, let me know in the comments what you're thinking, if you agree with the rankings. If you have suggestions for who should take whose spot, I would love to hear it in the comments. Definitely get involved there. But nonetheless, we'll start from the bottom. Coming in at number 10, we have the Portland Trailblazers. Portland Trailblazers, we talked about them earlier. They are 15-12 on the season. They have won 2 straight. They're 5-5 in their last 10, so they haven't been the greatest over the last few weeks or so. But nonetheless, 15-12, still right in the middle of the pack in that Western Conference. And I love the fact that they were able to stay afloat even without Damian Lillard for a majority of this season so far. So to see them sitting at the 5th seed in the Western Conference right now is impressive enough for me. You get Damon back in the mix the last few games. They're starting to get some W's and get this thing on the right track. They've won 2 in a row. Portland Trailblazers coming at number 10. They take on the Spurs tonight. Let's see if they can keep themselves in the top 10, because a loss to the Spurs would certainly move you out. Number 9, I have the LA Clippers. They are 16-13. They've won 2 in a row. They're 5-5 in their last 10 as well, but they currently hold the 6th seed. Once again, impressive by the Clippers because they were doing a lot of this without Paul George, without Kawhi Leonard, staying afloat. Those guys are back. Paul George is playing right now. They got some of their other role players back, and the Clippers should be able to get back on track in the short future. You look at the Clippers, they actually host the T-Wolves tonight, so I'll give you my picks for that game when we get to Wednesday night picks. Coming in at number 8, this is actually a fresh team in the top 10. We have the Brooklyn Nets. 17-12 on the season. They've won 4 in a row. They're 8-2 in their last 10. And they're definitely one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now, right? They currently hold the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. That's why we're going to do a little spotlight check on the Brooklyn Nets after we get done with the power rankings here. But nonetheless, Brooklyn Nets crack the top 10 at number 8. And let's be honest, if they start to click like they should, they're going to be moving up this list very shortly. Coming in at number 7, we have the Phoenix Suns. They've actually moved down quite a bit on my list. Last week, we had them at number 3 as they were the top Western Conference team. This week, that is no more. They're actually the 4 seed now at 16-12. They've lost 5 straight. They could honestly be moved lower, as fluid as this list is. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. Devin Booker hasn't played in the last few. But nonetheless, they're 4-6 in their last 10. They take on the Clippers tomorrow night in LA. We'll see if the Phoenix Suns can bounce back, or they could see themselves falling really far down this list and maybe even off of it. Coming in at number 6, we have the Denver Nuggets at 16-10. They've won 2 straight. They're 6-4 in their last 10. The Denver Nuggets are actually the 3 seed in the Western Conference right now, and they're starting to find their groove in a sense. They actually host the Wizards tonight, so that's another chance to take a step in the right direction for the Denver Nuggets. And ultimately, I think they do. Coming in at number 5, we start the top 5 from here. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers. They actually fell from 4 to 5. They are currently 17 and 11. They're first in points given up, so they're one of the better defensive teams in the NBA. They've actually lost. They lost their last one, but they're 5-5 in their last 10. The Cavs are at the Dallas Mavericks tonight, so it'll be an interesting matchup there. I would call that the game of the night based on the slate. But the Cavs, man, you talk about them defensively. They're first in points given up, but then you have those two power horses on the backcourt of your offense. So you have Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, both guys that can drop 25 to 30 on any given night. But then you have that fortress in the middle, right, with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. You interchange Isaac Okoro, whoever you want to throw in the mix, Karis LeVert. And they got a lot of different things they can throw at you there. Currently, the 3 seed in the East, so they've been able to maintain the 3 seed in the East nonetheless, even with Brooklyn sneaking up behind them there. But the Cleveland Cavaliers continue to impress. We'll see what they got tonight against the Dallas Mavs in Dallas. Number 4, we have the Memphis Grizzlies. They're 18-9 on the season. They are moving up because obviously you come into the season, you have to be high on the Memphis Grizzlies. If you're not by now, through all the injuries that they've been through in the groove that they're starting to get in, Ja is back. He's healthy. They're waiting on Desmond Bane, currently playing without him. But nonetheless, 18-9 on the season. Come in, have tied for the 3rd best record in the NBA, right? So you look at the Memphis Grizzlies. They're currently the 2nd seed in the West. They're 7th in scoring in the NBA. They've actually won 6 in a row. So they've won 6 straight there in Memphis. And they're 8-2 in their last 10. Their next game, they host the Milwaukee Bucks. So the Bucks travel to Memphis on Thursday. That should be a hell of a matchup. That's going to determine a lot of my rankings next week, maybe, right? When these guys go head to head. We'll see how this next week goes nonetheless. Coming in at number 3. So Memphis was number 4. We had the Memphis Grizzlies. Number 3, we have the New Orleans Pelicans, who we're going to talk about right after the power rankings here. But the Pelicans right now are 18-9. They're 5th in the NBA in scoring right now. They did lose last night, but they had won the previous 5 before that loss. They're 8-2 in their last 10. So before that loss to the Jazz last night, they were able to reel off 2 straight wins against the Phoenix Suns in New Orleans. Obviously, it stirred up a lot of talk with the Zion dunk in the first game. When the game was completely out of hand for Phoenix, there was really no point in scoring. Phoenix deemed that disrespectful, I suppose, and that stirred up a little bit of drama at the end of that one. Even with that happening, at the end of that first game in New Orleans, they come out the second game. Zion scores 35 points again, and they beat the Phoenix Suns again. So even with that disrespect, it didn't inspire anything within the Phoenix Suns in order to be able to beat the New Orleans Pelicans in that situation. So that was a bit of a Western Conference dethroning for me, quite honestly. New Orleans was able to supersede the Phoenix Suns, and they are now the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, representing the West. Number 2, we have the Milwaukee Bucks, 20-7. That's the 2nd best record in the NBA behind the Boston Celtics, who are ahead of them on this list. Surprise. They're 2nd in points given up, so they're very good defensively. They've won 1, so not able to put anything too healthy together so far, but nonetheless, getting on the right track with the win over the Warriors last night. They're 8-2 in their last 10, so they are playing some really good basketball, and ultimately, they will be at the Grizzlies. That's going to be their next game in Memphis, which once again should be a hell of a showdown between 2 top 5 teams I have here in my power rankings. Coming in at number 1, you could have guessed this after you've heard the rest of the list. It's going to be the Boston Celtics at 22-7 on the season. Best record in the NBA. They're 1st in the NBA in scoring. Offensive juggernaut. The defense is going to come along with it once Robert Williams, Al Horford get back. They're working with Blake Griffin as their starting center right now. So when Robert Williams, Al Horford get back, I expect this team to be not only the number 1 scoring offense, but one of the top 5 defenses in the NBA as well. Obviously, you have Jason Tatum, leading the way there as an MVP candidate. I would say the top MVP candidate in the NBA right now. But nonetheless, Boston Celtics 7-3 in their last 10. And their next game comes against the Magic in Boston. So should be a relatively easy win. I don't know if any game is an easy win at this point, guys, but should be a relatively easy win for Boston on Friday. Some honorable mentions to the top 10 here. I'll run through those really quick for you, those being the top 10. The Portland Trailblazers at number 10. We had the LA Clippers at number 9. We had the Brooklyn Nets at number 8. The Phoenix Suns at number 7. The Denver Nuggets at number 6. The Cleveland Cavaliers at number 5. The Memphis Grizzlies at number 4. The New Orleans Pelicans at number 3. The Milwaukee Bucks at number 2. And the Boston Celtics at number 1. So those will round out the top 10 of the power rankings with honorable mentions to the Philadelphia 76ers, as well as the Utah Jazz at 16-14. We have the Philadelphia 76ers at 15-12. Both of them in the middle of their respective conferences. That being said, that rounds out the power rankings. Told you I wanted to get through those a little bit quicker tonight. We usually tend to have those drag on, and they could take up to a half an hour. So I was happy to get through those kind of quickly tonight. That way we can definitely get through everything we need to with a good amount of time here. So looking at the two teams that I wanted to deep dive in on this episode, we're going to talk about the Brooklyn Nets, but then also the New Orleans Pelicans running the West, right? So we start with the Brooklyn Nets. Are they figuring it out? That's my big question to you guys out there. They're 17-12, right? They're the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. They've won 4 in a row. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They're 5-1 in the month of December. They're hot. Kyrie's back. All the drama has kind of subsided in a sense. He's able to move on. The team's able to move on. You have Ben Simmons return to the lineup in the last few games as well. And then they're role players. They're contributing, right? You have Seth Curry getting healthy. Joe Harris getting healthy. You have Royce O'Neal, who's a great addition over the offseason, who's been consistent for them, shooting 40% from the three-point line. So I'm really curious what you guys think out there. Are the Brooklyn Nets figuring it out? Are they starting to click? Did we allow that doubt to creep in too fast with this Brooklyn Nets team? Were we not understanding the drama that was going on there to the point where it was distracting for the team? Maybe the team couldn't focus. And maybe it just wasn't their time of the season, right? Maybe now they're starting to play the brand of basketball that they want to. They obviously had to fire their head coach, right? No more Steve Nash. So figuring that out. But it seems like they're starting to play some better basketball, and they're getting into the talk of the top of the Eastern Conference now. They're obviously in the top 10 of my power rankings as a whole for the NBA. And you have to start giving them their flowers, quite honestly. That's why I wanted to talk about the Brooklyn Nets briefly here tonight, just to give them the credit that's due. So much has been talked about with the Brooklyn Nets as far as all the wrong they're doing or what they're not doing, right? They had that embarrassing loss to the Philadelphia 76ers a couple weeks ago. There was no Embiid, there was no Harden, there was no Maxey. You had Ben Simmons coming into his first game in Philadelphia since the whole debacle, right? They go out, they lose that game with Ben Simmons, with Kyrie Irving, with Kevin Durant, all playing in that game. And then from there, it's as if something snapped. And it's like, oh, we have to go out here and play every single night. We have to go out and play as hard as we can, as focused as we can. And it looks like a new Brooklyn Nets team, quite honestly. They look like the Brooklyn Together hashtag that they used for several years. You look at KD on this season, 30 points per game, 6.7 rebounds per game, 5.5 assists per game, 1.7 blocks per game. He's shooting 55.9% from the field. He's shooting 34.6% from the three-point line. KD is doing it all. And if they keep winning, I said they're 5-1 in December. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They've won 4 in a row. If they keep winning, he's going to have to enter that MVP conversation. He's going to have to enter that MVP conversation. These numbers you cannot deny. 37-5. And on top of that, you have 1.7 blocks per game. He's doing it on the defensive end as well. You cannot deny what KD is doing with this Brooklyn team. And quite honestly, he needs to enter those MVP conversations. He's certainly not going ahead the likes of a Giannis or a Jason Tatum or even a Luka right now for me. But nonetheless, he's in the top 5. He has to be. Kyrie Irving, 25.3 points per game, 4.8 rebounds per game, 4.6 assists per game. He's doing it all, right? He's adding in all facets of the game. Just need him on the court consistently. That's the biggest thing with Kyrie Irving, is staying out of the drama off the court, staying away from the injury list, right? Being available for the Brooklyn Nets. That is the key for Kyrie Irving. We know the numbers will come, the 25, 5, and 5. That is great. We know that we're going to get that from Kyrie Irving when he steps on the court. The matter is just him doing that, stepping on the court. We need Kyrie Irving on the court for the Brooklyn Nets at all times if they want to be as successful as they need to be with this level of talent. Another guy I wanted to point out for the Brooklyn Nets before we move on to the Pelicans, Nick Claxton, sneakily good this season, man. 11.7 points per game, 8.7 rebounds per game, 2.2 blocks per game. So he's doing exactly what he should be as a big man that starts from time to time. Averaging close to 12 points, close to 9 rebounds, over 2 blocks a game. He's an excellent rim protector for them this season and kind of stepping up, right? They had to give him a little bit of a contract over the offseason to keep him, and he's kind of stepping up and showing that he deserved that contract for them. So shout out to Nick Claxton. He's been playing very well. And then once again, just shouting out Royce O'Neal, Seth Curry, Joe Harris, to have them all in the lineup and active and playing game to game. And even Ben Simmons, once they can get him back into the rotation. You can't sleep on the Nets, man. Ben Simmons was starting to come around. He had the knee injury, had to go back out. So he's back in the lineup now. But nonetheless, it's all about health for the Brooklyn Nets, it seems, because they're starting to get it together as their guys and their team gets healthier. So gotta give the Brooklyn Nets flowers, right? We're always talking down on the Brooklyn Nets. We always bring it up when they're going on a losing streak. Well, they're on a 4-game winning streak. They're one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now. They're 8-2 in their last 10. And we got to give them their flowers, give them a little bit of credit. The next team that I want to chat about, no, grab a drink of water here. There's a lot of talking. It's that season, got a little bit of a dry throat. It's that season that we're dealing with a bunch of sicknesses. I think my girlfriend might have gotten the flu. It's no good right now. But nonetheless, let's switch up to the New Orleans Pelicans. Talk about them. Obviously, it's one of my more favorite teams in the NBA. Obviously, the Sixers are my squad, but we got some Duke guys on that Pelicans squad that I really, really like, obviously. And Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. They got a few other guys on that roster as well from Duke. But this New Orleans Pelicans team is for real. I've been shouting them out since the beginning of the season. It was my sleeper team coming into the season. And they are a sleeper no more. They are the first seed in the Western Conference. They have overtaken the West. They're obviously tied with the Memphis Grizzlies, but they do own that tiebreaker nonetheless. You look at this team, 18-9, first seed in the West, 5-1 in the month of December. They're 8-2 in their last 10. And they haven't had Brandon Ingram since November 25th. So they're 5-1 without Brandon Ingram in the month of December. You look at Zion Williamson. This is the story here, and it's all about him, right? Him staying healthy. I guess that's not fair for me let me retract that statement. It's not fair for me to say that when these guys went to the playoffs last year and really gave a test for Phoenix Suns. When he is there, they're one of the best teams in the NBA, easily. That's where I'm at with the New Orleans Pelicans. It's not that they're nothing without Zion or they don't have a chance without Zion. It's not like that. It's more or less they become a top-tier team when Zion Williamson is in the lineup for the New Orleans Pelicans. Zion on the season, 25 points per game, 7.3 rebounds per game, 4.3 assists per game, 1.3 steals per game. They were able to dethrone the Suns this past week with back-to-back wins in New Orleans. Zion Williamson, mentioned him again, had 35 points in both of those games. He talked about it after the first game. Obviously, I talked about it earlier, the dunk. When the game was, fairly over, there's no reason to be scoring the basketball, but maybe the Phoenix Suns had a right to feel disrespected about it. But at the same time, my opinion, stop him. Don't let him get the dunk at the end. Don't let him do a 360 windmill in your squad. Don't let him come out and beat you as the number one seed in the West at the time by 9 points, right? Don't let them do those other things. And then the dunk, the 360 windmill doesn't matter on the other side either, right? Zion, I loved what he said after that game. Admitting maybe he did take it a little far. It is, over the years of playing basketball myself, I know it's an unsaid rule. You just kind of don't do that at the end of games. But I feel what he said after the game. He admittedly said, he may have went over the top for doing that, but at the same time, we all weren't in the locker room with him and his brothers last year when they got knocked out of the playoffs by the Phoenix Suns. We weren't on the sidelines in the seats with his teammates as they're going through those losses against the Phoenix Suns in the playoffs last year. So he went out there. He wanted to do that for his brothers. He wanted to revitalize this New Orleans team and show them they can go out there and beat the Phoenix Suns. They were able to do it 2 times in a row behind 35-point performances by Zion, 70 points in 2 games. You look at their upcoming week, man, the New Orleans Pelicans, big matchups. They play the Phoenix Suns again for a 3rd time. And then they also take on the Milwaukee Bucks, which I can't wait to tune into that matchup. That should be a hell of a showing. Zion versus Giannis, two of the more freakishly athletic players in the NBA. This Pelicans team is for real, man. We've talked about it all season. I've done a couple deep dives to start the season on this New Orleans Pelicans team. I've told you how deep they are. I mentioned Brandon Ingram hasn't played since November 25th. They're 5-1 in the month of December. They're 8-2 in their last 10. So even without Brandon Ingram, they're still deep enough to stay afloat, and not just stay afloat, take the number 1 seed in the entire Western Conference. So you got to give some credit to the New Orleans Pelicans and understand this team is for real. Zion, Brandon Ingram, CJ, these guys stay healthy. This team is for real. They have a chance. And they have a real chance to make some noise and disrupt the Western Conference and maybe just maybe win it if the Warriors can't get it together, the Clippers can't get it together, right? The Mavericks, these other teams in the Western Conference that you're just kind of waiting for them to get it together. The Memphis Grizzlies being that other juggernaut in the Western Conference to oppose New Orleans. But nonetheless, New Orleans owns that tiebreaker right now for a reason, right? So I'm looking out for the New Orleans Pelicans just to go over their depth. You know what I mean? Jonas Valanciunas does not get enough credit. Herb Jones doesn't get enough credit. Jose Alvarado, his efforts off the bench do not get enough credit. Trey Murphy doesn't get enough credit. He can space the floor. Just so many guys this New Orleans team can go to at any time. And it creates, on an 82-game season stretched out, it creates a little bit of havoc for other teams to go up against, especially with them being so young. So shout out to the New Orleans Pelicans. They're definitely playing some of their best basketball and some of the best basketball in the NBA right now. Just wanted to give a little love to them. But with that being said, we conclude the deep dives on the 2 teams that I wanted to focus on tonight. Those being the Brooklyn Nets, who are now the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference, and then also the New Orleans Pelicans, who are now the 1 seed in the Western Conference and number 3 in my top 10 power rankings. So nonetheless, we'll move on to Wednesday night picks. Last week, I told you guys I'm going to keep this up. I'm going to keep it up. I'm going to keep giving you my record from the previous week. It's a sign of credibility, accountability I want to hold myself to. I'm actually proud of the record this week, so no shame in my game. I was actually 9-2 on all games last week. And, of course, just taking a look at the slate tonight, we're going to go through, make our picks again. I'll let you guys know where we're at there. And then we'll get the best bets, and that should conclude the show here nonetheless. But 9-2 last week. The previous week before that, I was 9-4 on my Wednesday night picks. We always seem to get a pretty nice slate on Wednesdays, so plenty of picks to make. But nonetheless, 9-2, 9-4. So what? 18-6 in my last 2 weeks of NBA Wednesday night pick'ems. Pretty proud of myself. I'm going to try to keep this thing going this week. Stay hot. First game of the night, we have the Pistons at the Hornets. You have the Detroit Pistons coming into this one 7-22 on the season. Charlotte Hornets 7-20. So both of these teams at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. Charlotte is a 3.5-point favorite in this one. Charlotte is actually who I'm rolling in with this one. This could be considered a pick'em, but honestly, without Cade Cunningham in the lineup for the Detroit Pistons, I really just don't trust them on a nightly basis. They don't have their catalyst, the guy that creates for others, but also a guy that can average 18 to 20 points a game. So I just don't like what the Detroit Pistons are doing right now. They haven't been able to put any wins together. And I think the Hornets, this is a good bounce back night for them at home, going with the home dog and the Hornets. Next game we want to talk about, the Warriors at Pacers. So the Warriors are heading to Indiana on the tail end of a back-to-back. As you know, the Warriors are a little bit older as a team, so some of their guys may not go on the tail end of the back-to-back. Klay Thompson doesn't play back-to-backs. Andrew Wiggins has been out of the lineup. You have the Golden State Warriors, who are 14-14 on the season. Indiana Pacers are also 14-14. So you got a battle between the 14-win teams here and the 14-loss teams here, right? Indiana is actually a 2-point favorite at home against the Golden State Warriors tonight. As I mentioned, no Klay, no Wiggins. Steph Curry, Draymond Green, both day-to-day. Will they play? There's a solid chance they may not play tonight against the Indiana Pacers in Indiana. And it would be a good test for their young guys, right? Without those older vets in the game. It'd be a good test for Jordan Poole and company against a younger Indiana team. See where your young guys are at as you get closer and want to start building something here as far as a rotation and guys you can trust on that bench for the Warriors. But in this one, I'm going with the Pacers just because of the uncertainty around who's actually even playing for the Golden State Warriors on the tail end of that back-to-back. The next game we have is the Hawks at the Orlando Magic. The Hawks on the season are 14-14. Orlando is currently 8-20, one of the worst records in the NBA. Atlanta comes into this one only a 2.5-point favorite in this one. It's on the road. Atlanta hasn't been playing their best ball lately, but I am going to go with the Hawks in this one. They're better than the Orlando Magic. It's as simple as that. That Orlando Magic team is just too young right now, but they have some talent. Don't be surprised if it's a tough game. I still have the Hawks on the road grabbing that W. After that, we have the Kings at the Raptors. The Sacramento Kings on the season are 14-12, coming off a loss to the Sixers last night in Philly. So they're on the road heading up north to Toronto tonight on the tail end of the back-to-back against the Raptors, who are 13-14 on the season. Toronto trying to build some steam. Sacramento trying to stay afloat. Two teams, I wouldn't say they're going in opposite directions, but they're trying to go in. And they're both trying to go in the same direction, so it should be a hell of a game nonetheless. Toronto is a 5-point favorite in this one. No OG Anunoby for the Toronto Raptors. I am going to go with Toronto in this one. As I mentioned all the time about the Toronto Raptors, well-coached, sturdy, deep roster for the Toronto Raptors. On the Sacramento Kings, they're young, but this road trip is going to get to them at some point. On the tail end of the back-to-back, I just think it's going to be a little much for them to go up to Toronto and get a W against these Raptors. The next game we have is the Knicks at the Chicago Bulls. We have the New York Knicks, who are 14-13 on the season. The Chicago Bulls, who are 11-15. Chicago is actually a 4.5-point favorite in this one coming into this game. I'm actually just going to go with the home team in this one, honestly. This one I would call more of a pick'em game. Both of these teams not playing their best ball, I guess you could say. New York Knicks better than what the Bulls are playing, I guess you would also say. But I'm going to go with the home dog in this one, and I think it's time for the Bulls to bounce back. You have DeMar DeRozan. You have Zach LaVine, right? You have your guys there, so it's time to go out there and get a W. Jalen Brunson questionable for this one. So let's see if the Chicago Bulls can take care of business at home. This next one is an interesting pick for me, and you guys might question it, but we'll see how it goes tonight. We have the Miami Heat at the Oklahoma City Thunder. Miami Heat are 13-15 on the season. You also have the OKC, the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are 11-16 on the season. Miami's a 2.5-point favorite on the road in OKC tonight. Miami has not been playing good basketball, so I'm going to try to spark them tonight and try to get them back in the win column, right? I'm going to pick the Oklahoma City Thunder in this one. Miami's only a 2.5-point favorite on the road against OKC. I get it's on the road. Miami's got to be better than that. I'm going to try to spark the Miami Heat tonight. I'm going to pick the Oklahoma City Thunder to win this one at home tonight. SGA is going to shine, as always. Portland Trailblazers at the San Antonio Spurs. Portland Trailblazers on the season 15-12. San Antonio Spurs are 9-18, one of the worst records in the NBA. Portland is a 7.5-point favorite in this one. And Dame Lillard, only reason you would probably watch this one, and maybe if you're interested in Portland, but Dame Lillard has been balling lately, had 11 threes in his last game. I actually have a best bet, including Dame Lillard, coming up later. I got the Portland Trailblazers all the way in this one. This is a no-brainer. And I expect them to continue playing good ball. They've showed signs that they are a solid team. I want to see if they can keep that up. Up next, we have what I would call the game of the night. It's the best matchup, I would say, on the slate. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers at the Dallas Mavericks. Cleveland Cavaliers are 17-11 on the season. Dallas Mavericks 14-13. Dallas is a 1.5-point favorite in this one. You get Donovan Mitchell, you get Darius Garland, you get Luka Doncic on the other side of it. MVP candidate versus a very dynamic duo in the backcourt. It should be a hell of a matchup. I got a couple best bets, including some plays in this game as well. As I said, it's my game of the night. I'm actually going with the Mavs in this one at home. I think the Mavs need the W a little bit more. Cleveland's struggling a little bit right now. They obviously need to bounce back at some point, but I don't think it's on the road against the MVP candidate Luka-led Dallas Mavericks. So I'm going to go with the Mavs against the Cavs. And then we have the Washington Wizards visiting the Denver Nuggets. Wizards are 11-17 on the season. Nuggets are 16-10. Nuggets come into this game 11.5-point favorites. Going with the Nuggets in this one, that's pretty simple for me. They got Nikola Jokic, two-time MVP in the game. They got Jamal Murray. He's starting to play a little bit better. Bones Highland, I mentioned, as a six-man of the year candidate this season. I like what Denver has going on. They're in my top 10 at number 6 of my power rankings. I got Denver in this game. Just one they should take care of business with at home. And then the final game of the night, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves visiting the LA Clippers. Minnesota Timberwolves are 13-14 on the season. LA Clippers 16-13. Clippers, obviously number 9 in my top 10 power rankings right now, are a 7-point favorite at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And that's actually who I'm going with in this game. I'm going with the Clippers. Got Paul George back in the mix. I like the Clippers when they got Paul George at least. You love them when they have Kawhi and he's at full strength. I like them when they have Paul George and the rest of that group there. They got a very deep roster. It's nice to have at least one of your stars to go along with that deep roster. And we've seen what they can do when they at least have Paul George, Norman Powell, Reggie Jackson, some of those guys. Hopefully John Wall gets healthy here. But nonetheless, I got the Clippers at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So just to go through the slate one more time with my picks, Pistons at Hornets. I got the Hornets tonight in Charlotte. Warriors at Pacers. I got the Pacers tonight in Indiana. Hawks at Magic. I have the Hawks taking it in Orlando. We have the Kings at the Raptors. I have the Toronto Raptors taking care of business at home. The Knicks at the Bulls. I have the Chicago Bulls winning at home. Miami at OKC. Maybe my upset pick of the night, you could call it. I have the OKC Thunder taking out the Miami Heat at home. And then I have the Blazers visiting the Spurs. I have the Blazers taking that W on the road. Cavs at Mavs. I'm going Mavericks at home. Luka Doncic, the MVP candidate. We have the Washington Wizards at the Denver Nuggets. I'm taking Jokic, two-time MVP, and the Denver Nuggets in that one. And then we have the T-Wolves at LA Clippers. As I just mentioned, I am going with the LA Clippers in that one. Now to my favorite segment of the show, Best Bets. It's the best part of my day when I get to put money on the line and see if I can make some. So I got to hit a little bit of a parlay earlier with the France and World Cup. Obviously, I had France winning coming from my background. I'm always rooting for France, but happy to see them go to the World Cup final. Just want to say that once again because I'm very happy to see Mbappe go and knock out Lionel Messi in his dreams of winning the World Cup in his final trip. It's going to be Mbappe in France that does that to him. But that's for another show, another time, another day. Nonetheless, let's go to the best bet segment here. I actually have 4 plays for you guys tonight. You can pick any of the 4. But I think all of them have very solid chance of hitting, and I have some good reasoning as to why I think that. The first one I'm going to give to you, I mentioned that Cavs and Mavs game. I love the Luka over 8.5 assists. It's at plus 110. You look at Luka on the season, he averages 8.8 assists per game. He's a king of a triple-double, double-double as a guard. The ball is always in his hands. You look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're one of the better defensive teams in the NBA. They have 2 dynamic guards on the outside. And I think what the Cavs can do in this game, Luka's going to get his 25 to 30 points. We know that that's going to happen. The Cavs should be able to force Luka into sharing the ball with his teammates. You just got to hope that Luka's teammates can finish the opportunities. But nonetheless, I look at this as a big game for Luka to be contributing as far as a facilitator and getting into the assist column. And he's done it in 2 of his last 3 games. He's gone up over 8.5 assists. So love the Luka over on 8.5 assists at plus 110. That was on DraftKings. Or excuse me, that was actually on FanDuel. Excuse me. The next one, I'm going to go to the Spurs and Trailblazers game. And I'm looking at Dame Lillard. So there's 2 options here. You can go with Dame. If you want to go safe, I look at safe 4 threes tonight. 4+ threes for Dame Lillard tonight at minus 160. As I mentioned, he had 11 in his last game. He's had over 4 threes in 3 of his last 4 games. So the next thing I said, I had 2 for you here with Dame Lillard in the threes. If you want to be froggy, go for the 5+ threes tonight at plus 145. As I mentioned, 11 in the last game. I say he went over 4 in 3 of his last 4. He's gone over 5 in 3 of his last 4 as well. So that statistic still stays true, even for 5+ threes. If you want to be safe, risk-free, go with the 4+ threes. If you want to feel froggy, make some plus money there, go with the 5+ threes for Dame Lillard. Going back to the Cavs and Mavs game, I have a guard on the other side whose props I like, and it's actually assists again. So I'm looking at Donovan Mitchell over 4.5 assists tonight against the Dallas Mavericks. It's at plus 100. So D Mitch over 4.5 assists. He's actually gone over 4.5 assists in 2 of his last 3 outings, and he actually averages 4.7 assists on the season. So I look at this as an opportunity. He's going up head-to-head with Luka Doncic tonight. I think they both get into a facilitator role, want to get their teammates involved. Of course, they're going to go at it head-to-head, but I think both of these guys hit the over in the assist column tonight for the respectable odds. So Luka over 8.5 assists at plus 110. I love that. Over 8.5 assists in 2 of his last 3 games. He averages 8.8 assists per game. And then Spida Mitchell, you have over 4.5 assists at plus 100 on FanDuel. He's over 4.5 assists in 2 of his last 3. He averages 4.7 assists on the season. And then finally, I wouldn't call this one a best bet. This is just one of my money line plays I like to play every single Wednesday. But I have a 4-team money line parlay. The Atlanta Hawks I have beating the Orlando Magic in Orlando. I have the Charlotte Hornets taking care of business against the Pistons in Charlotte. I have the Portland Trailblazers taking care of business of the San Antonio Spurs. And then in a tight one, I have the Dallas Mavericks money line over the Cleveland Cavaliers. That comes out to plus 532. So those are my money line picks that I'm laying the best bet on tonight in a parlay. That is going to wrap up the best bet segment of the show. And quite honestly, that wraps up the show for tonight, guys. If you decide to lay something that I offered to you or that I brought to your attention tonight, definitely let me know in the comments. If it doesn't hit, let me know in the comments, because I want to make sure you're holding me accountable for my picks that I'm getting out here. But nonetheless, guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of your night. It's always a pleasure. If you tuned in, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're tuning in after the live broadcast, thank you as well. Be sure to still leave your comments in the comments section. I will certainly get to them in my free time. But guys, I will see you guys on Saturday morning. We'll be back with Turf Talk on Saturday morning, but I'll also be back with Scotty Talks Sixers. We'll do a Sixers deep dive because quite honestly, it's been a while. But guys, thank you for tuning in tonight. I truly appreciate it. Be sure to hit the subscribe button on the DSM Media YouTube channel. Turn those notifications on so you're notified every single time we go live. And of course, be sure to follow the DSM Media Twitter page at DSM_media. On TikTok, just at DSM Media. You can also find me on all social media platforms at Scotty Drown. That's going to be it for this episode of Scotty Talks NBA. Cheers to another week of NBA action. Cheers to new power rankings. And let's hope that all of my Wednesday night picks hit. Guys, have a great night. Peace.